The ceremony hall at the Royal Navy Training Center in Portsmouth was decorated with Union Jack flags and proud banners celebrating the newest officers. Nadine had worked 3 years for this moment. 3 years of waking up at 4 in the morning, of pushing her body past limits she did not know existed, of proving to every single person who doubted her that an African-American woman could rise through the ranks. She had done it, top of her class, commendations for leadership, a future that finally looked bright. But as the commanding officer announced that family members could now tap out their recruits, Nadine felt her chest tighten. She watched as her fellow officers, people she had trained beside for years, got swept up in embraces. Johnson got tapped out by his parents and 3 brothers. Martinez had her girlfriend sprint across the room, nearly knocking over a chair in her excitement. Even Stevens, quiet Stevens, who never talked about his family, had an elderly grandmother shuffling toward him with the biggest smile. One by one, they all disappeared into love, and Nadine stood there, alone. She kept her eyes forward, jaw clenched, refusing to let anyone see the crack forming in her armor. She had known this would happen. Her mother had passed when she was 12. A stroke that came out of nowhere and took everything. Her father, well, he had made it clear years ago that he wanted nothing to do with a daughter who chose the military over the quiet life he had planned for her. No siblings, no extended family that claimed her. No romantic partner because she had been too focused, too driven, too unavailable. The hall was starting to empty. Families were taking photos, laughing, crying happy tears. And Nadine just stood there at attention, pretending this did not hurt, pretending she did not feel like that 12-year-old girl again, standing at her mother's funeral, realizing she was fundamentally alone in this world. She was about to break protocol and walk herself out when she felt it, that tiny hand, slipping into hers with a confidence that seemed impossible for someone so small. Nadine looked down sharply. The little boy could not have been more than 5. He had perfectly cut black hair, and he was wearing a tiny navy blue suit. His face was serious, not the playful expression of a child, but the solemn look of someone on a mission. "What are you—" Nadine started. But the words died in her throat as the boy wrapped both arms around her leg and squeezed. He was hugging her? She glanced around frantically, looking for a panicked parent, someone searching for a lost child, but no one was looking their way. The boy pulled back slightly and looked up at her with those impossibly deep brown eyes. "You look sad," he said in a small voice, with a slight British accent that surprised her. "My appa says when someone looks sad, you should give them a hug." Nadine felt something crack wide open in her chest. This child, this stranger, had seen her. Really seen her. When everyone else had been too wrapped up in their own joy to notice the woman standing alone, this little boy had paid attention. She did not realize she was crying until she felt the wetness on her cheeks. "Hey, sweetie," she managed, her voice rough. "Where is your dad?" The boy pointed across the hall, and that is when Nadine saw him. Park Jin-woo stood near the back wall, partially hidden behind a group of celebrating families. He was tall, over 6 feet easily, dressed in a black suit that was so perfectly tailored it looked like it had been sewn onto his body. His dark hair was swept back, revealing a face that was all sharp angles and intense focus. But what caught Nadine's attention, what made her breath hitch, was the way he was looking at his son. Not with anger that the boy had run off, but with this softness, this profound gentleness that seemed at odds with everything else about him. Their eyes met across the crowded hall, and Nadine felt it, that electric moment when you lock eyes with someone and the entire world seems to stop spinning. He started moving toward her, cutting through the crowd with the kind of presence that made people automatically step aside. Nadine could not look away. There was something about him, something magnetic and slightly dangerous, that made her pulse quicken. He stopped a few feet away, and she realized his eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they were looking at her with an intensity that made her skin warm. "Min-jun," he said softly, addressing his son. "Now, what did we talk about?" His voice was deep, with a British accent layered over Korean inflections, the kind of voice that rumbled through you. The little boy, Min-jun, looked up at his father with zero fear. "You said to be kind. Appa." "I also said not to run off." But she was sad. Min-jun said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. She had no one to tap her out. Jin-woo's eyes flickered back to Nadine. She saw something shift in his expression. A recognition. Maybe understanding. "I am so sorry," Nadine started, wiping quickly at her face. "He just came over and—" "Do not apologize," Jin-woo interrupted gently. "My son has a habit of finding people who need kindness." He crouched down to Min-jun's level, and Nadine watched as his entire demeanor changed. The intimidating businessman disappeared, and in his place was just a father. "That was very kind of you," Jin-woo said, straightening Min-jun's little tie. "But you scared me when you ran off." "Sorry, Appa." Jin-woo pressed a quick touch to his son's head, then stood back up. He extended his hand to Nadine. "Park Jin-woo," he introduced himself, "and you have already met my son, Park Min-jun." Nadine took his hand. The moment their skin touched, she felt a jolt. It was not just attraction. Though there was plenty of that, it was recognition, like her soul knew his, even though they had just met. "Nadine Washington," she managed. His hand was warm, his grip firm but not aggressive. He held on just a moment longer than necessary. "Congratulations on your commissioning, Officer Washington." The way he said her rank, with that voice, should not have affected her the way it did. But Nadine felt heat creep up her neck. "Thank you," she said, slowly pulling her hand back. There was a moment of silence, not awkward, but charged, like both of them were trying to figure out what to say next, how to make this moment last just a little longer. Min-jun solved the problem by tugging on his father's jacket. "Appa, can we take her to dinner? She has no one to celebrate with." Nadine's eyes widened. "Oh no, that is really not—" "That is actually a wonderful idea," Jin-woo interrupted, his eyes never leaving Nadine's face. "If you have no other plans—" This was insane. She had just met these people. But when was the last time someone had seen her like this? When was the last time someone had offered her kindness with no strings attached? Nadine hesitated. Jin-woo seemed to sense her uncertainty. "No pressure," he added quietly. "But my son is right. Today should be celebrated, and no one should celebrate alone." There was something in his voice, an understanding that felt personal, like maybe he knew what it was like to be alone too. Nadine looked down at Min-jun, who was staring up at her with such hopeful eyes, and she made a decision that would change everything. "Okay," she said softly. "Dinner sounds nice." Min-jun's face split into the biggest smile, and Jin-woo looked at her like she had just given him something precious. They ended up at a small Korean restaurant in Portsmouth that Nadine had walked past 100 times but never entered. Jin-woo had offered his car, a sleek black Mercedes, but Nadine had insisted on meeting them there. She needed a moment to breathe, to process what had just happened. In the bathroom of the ceremony hall, she had stared at her reflection and asked herself what the hell she was doing, having dinner with a man she did not know. And and his 5-year-old son. On what was supposed to be the most professional day of her life. But then she remembered, that little hand slipping into hers, those serious eyes seeing her pain, the way Jinwoo had looked at her, like she mattered. So she had changed out of her formal uniform into the simple black dress she had brought, just in case there had been someone to celebrate with, and now she was sitting across from a Korean billionaire. She had looked him up on her phone and nearly dropped it when she saw his net worth. And his son. The restaurant was small, intimate, with traditional Korean music playing softly in the background. Minjun sat between them in a booster seat, swinging his legs and explaining very seriously about each dish his father ordered. "This is bulgogi," he said, pointing at the marinated beef. "It is my favorite." "Minjun's favorite changes every week," Jinwoo added with a small smile. It was the first time Nadine had seen him really smile. It transformed his entire face, softening those sharp edges, making him look younger. "What was last week's favorite?" Nadine asked, surprising herself with how comfortable she felt. "Tteokbokki," Minjun announced proudly. "The spicy rice cakes," Jinwoo translated, which he ate exactly 2 of before deciding they were too spicy. Minjun wrinkled his nose. "They made my tongue hurt." Nadine laughed, a real, genuine laugh that came from somewhere deep. When was the last time she had laughed like that? Jinwoo was watching her again with that intense focus. "You have a beautiful laugh," he said quietly. The words were simple, but the way he said them, like he was telling her a secret. Nadine felt her cheeks warm. "Thank you." And Jinwoo began explaining each dish, making sure she knew what everything was. His hand would occasionally brush hers as he passed her different plates. Each touch felt intentional, weighted. Minjun kept the conversation flowing, asking Nadine questions about being in the Navy, about ships and submarines, his eyes wide with fascination. "Do you have a big boat?" he asked. "Not yet," Nadine admitted. "I will be assigned to a ship after I finish some more training." "Will you fight bad guys?" "Minjun," Jinwoo said gently, "let Officer Washington eat." "No, it is okay." Nadine smiled at the boy. "And yes, part of my job is to protect people from bad guys." Minjun nodded solemnly. "Like a superhero." "Exactly like that." The boy seemed satisfied with this answer. As they ate, Nadine found herself relaxing in a way she had not in years. No, there was something about Jinwoo's quiet presence, the way he paid attention to every word she said, the way he anticipated her needs before she even voiced them. When her water glass was low, he filled it. When she seemed uncertain about a dish, he offered to taste it first. When Minjun accidentally knocked over his cup, Jinwoo cleaned it up without any frustration, just patient efficiency. She was watching a father love his son, and it was beautiful. "Can I ask?" Nadine started carefully. "Where is Minjun's mother?" The question hung in the air. Jinwoo's expression shuddered slightly. "She passed," he said quietly, his hand moving to rest on Minjun's shoulder. "When Minjun was 2. Nadine's heart clenched. I am so sorry." "You did not know," Jinwoo interrupted gently. "It is all right to ask." Minjun looked up at his father with concern. "It is okay, Appa. You have me." Jinwoo's expression cracked. For just a moment, Nadine saw past the controlled exterior to the grief underneath. He pulled Minjun close, pressing a gentle touch to the top of his head. "Yes, I have you." It was such an intimate moment. Nadine felt like she should look away, but she could not, because she understood. She understood what it was like to lose someone, to have a hole in your life that never quite filled, to be strong for the world while breaking in private. Jinwoo looked up, and their eyes met again. And in that moment, without saying a word, they understood each other. In two people carrying grief, two people who had learned to survive alone, finding each other across a crowded ceremony hall because a 5-year-old boy believed in kindness. Dinner stretched into 2 hours, then 3. The restaurant staff never rushed them, and Nadine suspected it had something to do with Jinwoo's presence. Minjun eventually fell asleep, and then it was just Nadine and Jinwoo, talking quietly across the table. She learned that he had moved to London from Seoul when he was 20 to expand his family's technology company, that he had built an empire, but considered his son his greatest achievement, that he had not been on a single date since his wife passed, because no one understood. No one understood what it was like to be a single father in his position, the expectations, the judgment, the loneliness. Nadine shared her story too, about losing her mother, about her father's rejection, about pouring everything into the Navy because it was the only family she had left. "You are remarkable," Jinwoo said at one point, his voice low and sincere. "I am just surviving," Nadine countered. "No." He leaned forward slightly. "Surviving is just getting through. You are thriving. There is a difference." No one had ever put it that way. No one had ever seen her struggle as strength. "You do not even know me," Nadine whispered. "Not yet," Jinwoo agreed, "but I would like to." The air between them charged. This was dangerous territory. He was a billionaire. She was a Navy officer just starting her career. He had a son. She had no experience with children beyond today. He was Korean, likely with family expectations she could not imagine. She was an African-American woman who had fought for every single thing she had. This could not work. This should not work. But when Jinwoo reached across the table and his fingers brushed against hers, Nadine did not pull away. "I know this is fast," he said quietly. "I know we just met, but I have not felt this connected to anyone in years." "Me neither," Nadine admitted. "Can I see you again?" It was such a simple question, but it felt enormous. Nadine looked at Minjun sleeping peacefully again. She thought about that moment in the ceremony hall, when this little boy had seen her pain and offered comfort. She thought about Jinwoo's eyes, the way they saw her, not just her uniform or her rank or her usefulness, her, the woman underneath. "Yes," she heard herself say, "I would like that." Jinwoo's smile was slow, but devastating. "Tomorrow?" he asked. "I have duty?" "The day after?" Nadine laughed softly. "You are persistent. When I know what I want?" "Yes." The way he said it, the way he looked at her, there was no mistaking his meaning. He wanted her. "The day after tomorrow," Nadine agreed, "but somewhere, normal, not billionaire fancy?" Jinwoo supplied with amusement. "Exactly. Done." He pulled out his phone and handed it to her. Your number?" Nadine hesitated for only a moment, then typed it in. When she handed it back, their fingers touched again. That same electric charge. Jinwoo felt it too. She could see it in the way his eyes darkened. "I should get Minjun home," he said reluctantly, "before he completely falls asleep and I have to carry him." "Of course." They stood. Jinwoo gently lifted his son, and Minjun mumbled something in Korean, curling into his father's chest. The sight of this powerful man holding his child so tenderly. It did something to Nadine, made her want things she had convinced herself she could never have. Outside the restaurant, the night air was cool. Jinwoo's car was parked right in front, and Nadine could see a driver waiting inside. "Thank you," she said softly. "For tonight, for seeing me when—" "You do not need to thank me," Jinwoo interrupted. It was exactly what I needed too. They stood there for a moment. Two people drawn together by chance and loneliness and a 5-year-old's kindness. Good night. Nadine. The way he said her name, like it was something precious. Good night. Jinwoo. She watched him settle Minjun into a car seat, watched the Mercedes pull away, and even though she had just met him, even though this was crazy and fast and completely unlike her, Nadine already missed him. Her phone buzzed before she even made it back to her car. Unknown number. I know I just left, but I wanted to make sure you knew. Today was extraordinary. Thank you for saying yes. Nadine stared at the message. She should not respond right away. She should play it cool, but she had never been good at games. Nadine. Today was extraordinary for me, too. Thank you for seeing me, the response came immediately. Jinwoo. I will always see you. Sleep well. Officer Washington. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Nadine went to sleep smiling. The next 2 days were torture. Nadine tried to focus on her duties, on the training schedule, on preparing for her first assignment, but her mind kept drifting. To dark eyes and gentle hands, to a little boy who had seen her pain, to the way Jinwoo had looked at her, like she was the only person in the room. They texted constantly. Good morning messages? Random thoughts throughout the day? When pictures. Jinwoo sent her one of Minjun eating ice cream with it all over his face. She sent back a selfie in her uniform with the caption, missing the bulgogi. His response, missing you. It was too much too fast. She knew that, but it also felt inevitable, like they were both falling, and neither wanted to stop. Finally. It was time. Nadine changed 3 times before settling on jeans and a simple blue sweater. Nothing fancy, just her. Jinwoo had sent her an address in central London, near Hyde Park. When she arrived, she found him waiting outside a small cafe, dressed in dark jeans and a black sweater. No suit, no billionaire armor, just him and Minjun holding his father's hand, bouncing with excitement. Nadine! The little boy shouted. I'm breaking free and running toward her. She crouched down, and he threw his arms around her neck. I missed you. This child, this beautiful child. I missed you too, Minjun. When she looked up, Jinwoo was standing there, watching them with an expression she could not quite read. Hi, she said softly. Hi, he replied, and the world fell away. There was only this moment, this connection, this terrifying, exhilarating, impossible thing growing between them. Jinwoo offered his hand. Nadine took it, and together, the 3 of them walked into the cafe. Into possibility. Into a future that neither of them had planned, but both desperately wanted. The next 3 months were the happiest of Nadine's life, and the most terrifying. She saw Jinwoo every moment she could spare, which was not as often as either of them wanted. Her Navy schedule was brutal, unpredictable, demanding, but Jinwoo never complained. He would meet her at odd hours, bringing coffee to the base gates at 5 in the morning, picking her up after late-night training sessions, and Minjun, that little boy had wrapped himself around her heart so completely that it scared her. He started calling her Nadine Siam, which Jinwoo explained meant teacher. He does not call many people that, Jinwoo had said quietly. It means he respects you. They fell into a rhythm. When Nadine had weekends off, they would explore London together, the 3 of them. Museums where Minjun would ask 1,000 questions, parks where they would watch him play, quiet dinners where Minjun would fall asleep and Jinwoo and Nadine would talk for hours, but they were always careful. No one at the Navy knew about Jinwoo. Nadine kept this part of her life separate, private, protected, because she knew what people would say, what they would assume, that she was using him for money, that this was just a fling, that it could not possibly be real. And Jin-woo had his own complications, his family in Korea, who expected him to marry someone appropriate, someone Korean, someone from their world, the board members who already questioned his decisions, the press that followed his every move. He had not told anyone about Nadine either. They existed in this bubble, beautiful and fragile, and Nadine knew. It could not last. But she fell anyway. She fell in love with the way Jin-woo looked at his son, the way he listened when she talked about her day, the way he touched her, gentle and reverent, like she was something precious. It had not gone beyond holding hands and long looks. There was always Min-jun between them, a beautiful, innocent barrier. But the tension was building. Every accidental touch, every moment their eyes met across a room, every good night that lasted too long, Nadine was falling in love, and it was going to destroy her. The breaking point came on a Friday night. Nadine had just finished a particularly brutal week of training. She was exhausted, covered in bruises from combat drills, ready to collapse. Her phone rang. Jin-woo. "Hello," she answered, unable to keep the tiredness from her voice. "You sound exhausted," he said immediately. "Long week? Come over." Nadine hesitated. She had never been to his place. They always met in public, on neutral ground. "Jin-woo, please." His voice dropped lower. "Min-jun is already asleep. I want to see you. I want to take care of you." Something in his tone broke through her defenses. "Okay," she whispered. He sent a car. Because of course he did. Nadine watched the London streets pass by, her heart racing. This felt different, significant. The car pulled up to a building in Knightsbridge that made her stomach drop. It was all glass and modern architecture, the kind of place that screamed money. A doorman greeted her by name. Because Jin-woo had already told them she was coming, the elevator required a key card for the penthouse. Of course it did. When the doors opened, Nadine stepped into a space that took her breath away, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking London, minimalist furniture that was somehow both elegant and comfortable, and Jin-woo, standing in the kitchen, cooking, wearing dark slacks and a simple white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked up when she entered, and his expression shifted. Nadine. Just her name. But the way he said it, like a prayer. She walked toward him slowly. "This is..." She gestured around. "This is where you live?" "This is where Min-jun and I live. Yes. It is beautiful. It is lonely," Jin-woo said quietly. "Until tonight." He set down the knife he was holding and moved toward her, slowly, deliberately, giving her time to stop him. She did not. He stopped inches away, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "You look exhausted," he murmured, reaching up to gently touch her face. His thumb traced along her cheekbone. "I am," she admitted. "When was the last time someone took care of you?" The question hit her harder than any punch in training. I do not remember." Something fierce flashed in Jin-woo's eyes. "Sit," he commanded softly. "Let me feed you." It should have felt weird. This billionaire cooking for her in his penthouse, but instead, it felt right. Nadine sat at the kitchen island and watched him move. He had made Korean soup, something with beef and vegetables that smelled incredible. "My mother's recipe," he explained, setting a bowl in front of her. "It is what she made when I was tired or sick. It heals everything." Nadine took a sip. It was perfect, warm and nourishing and made with care. She felt tears prick her eyes. "Hey." Jin-woo was around the island immediately, his hand on her back. "What is wrong?" "Nothing is wrong," Nadine said, wiping quickly at her face. No one has ever... She could not finish. Jin-woo crouched beside her chair, turning her to face him. No one has ever... What? Cooked for me, taken care of me like this. I am always the strong one, the one who handles everything. And You are allowed to be tired, Jin-woo said firmly. You are allowed to need someone. I do not know how. Then let me teach you. His hands came up to cup her face, and Nadine saw it. Everything he felt. It was written in his eyes, in the way he touched her, in the way he looked at her. I am falling in love with you, he whispered. I know it is too soon. I know we have only known each other 3 months, but I cannot pretend anymore. Nadine's heart stopped. Jin-woo, you do not have to say it back, he continued quickly. I just needed you to know. I needed you to understand that what we have, it is not casual for me. It is everything. It is everything for me too, Nadine breathed. And then, he was closing the distance, moving so slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. But she did not want to pull away. She wanted this, and the world ignited. Stay, he whispered. Stay with me tonight. Jin-woo, Min-jun, has his own room and sleeps like the dead. He pulled back just enough to look at her. I just want to hold you. I want to wake up with you. Please. How could she say no to that? How could she deny herself this one night of not being alone? Okay, she whispered. I will stay. They ate soup curled up on his massive couch, talking quietly, his arm around her shoulders, her hand on his chest. Jin-woo told her about Min-jun's mother, about how they had met in university, how she had gotten sick so quickly. It was her heart, he said quietly. We did not know. There was a defect. And after Min-jun was born, the pregnancy had weakened it. She only had 2 years with him. That must have been devastating. It was, Jin-woo admitted. I was angry for a long time. At the universe, at fate, at her for leaving us. And now? Now I am grateful. He looked down at her. Grateful for the time we had. Grateful for Min-jun. And grateful that I get a second chance. With me? Nadine whispered. With you. She ended up tucked against his chest, his heartbeat steady under her ear. Tell me something, she said quietly. Tell me something no one else knows. Jin-woo was quiet for a moment. I am terrified, he finally said. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of how much I feel. His arm tightened around her. I spent 3 years building walls, protecting Min-jun and myself, and you walked into my life and destroyed them in 3 months. Is that a bad thing? It is terrifying, he repeated, because now I have something to lose again. Nadine pushed up on her elbow, looking down at him. You are not going to lose me. You do not know that. Jin-woo's hand came up to touch her face. Your career, my family, the press. There are so many ways this could go wrong. So we do not let it. You make it sound simple. Maybe it is, Nadine said. Maybe we are the ones making it complicated. Jin-woo stared at her for a long moment. I want to believe that, he whispered. Then believe it. They stayed like that, wrapped around each other, until they both drifted off. Nadine woke to sunlight streaming through massive windows. For a moment, she was disoriented. This was not her small flat. This was Nadine Sam. She shot up. Min-jun was standing at the edge of the couch, still in his pajamas, staring at her with wide eyes. Oh no. Good morning, Min-jun, she managed. The little boy's face split into the biggest smile. You are here, Appa said you might stay, but I did not believe it. Jinwoo appeared from the hallway, hair slightly mussed, looking unfairly attractive in sleep-rumpled clothes. Minjun, what did we talk about? Let Nadine Sem wake up first. The boy recited dutifully, but he was bouncing with excitement. Jinwoo's eyes met Nadine's, and she saw the question there. Are you okay? She smiled. More than okay. How about, Jinwoo suggested, we make Nadine Siam breakfast? Pancakes, Minjun shouted. And just like that, Nadine found herself in Jinwoo's kitchen, watching him make pancakes while Minjun chattered nonstop. It felt like a family. It felt like home. And that terrified her more than any military operation, because she could not lose this. She could not survive losing this. But 3 weeks later, her worst fear started coming true. She was called into her commanding officer's office. Commander Peters was a strict woman. All business, the kind of leader Nadine aspired to be. Officer Washington, she started, I am going to be direct. There have been concerns raised. Nadine's stomach dropped. Concerns, ma'am? About your personal associations. No. Her no. I do not understand. You have been seen with Park Jin-woo, Peters said bluntly. The billionaire several times in public. That is not against regulations. It becomes a concern when it affects your judgment, your security clearance, your reliability. Nadine felt ice flood her veins. My personal life has never affected my service. Not yet, Peters interrupted, but the Navy has standards. Appearances matter, and a relationship with someone of his profile raises questions. Questions about what? Nadine could not keep the edge from her voice. About your motivations, about potential conflicts of interest, about whether you can be trusted. The words hit like physical blows. I have given everything to the Navy, and we appreciate that, Peters said. Which is why I am giving you a choice. End the relationship, or face a formal review that could impact your career. The world stopped. You cannot be serious. I am very serious. Officer Washington, you have worked too hard to throw it away for a man you barely know. He is not just... Nadine stopped herself, but it was too late. Peters raised an eyebrow. Not just what? A fling? A wealthy benefactor? What is he to you? Everything. He was everything. But Nadine could not say that, could not admit how deeply she had fallen. I need time, she managed, to think. You have 48 hours, Peters said. After that, I need an answer. Nadine left the office in a daze. She made it to her car before the tears started. This could not be happening. The Navy was her life, her identity, her family. But Jin-woo and Min-jun, they had become her heart. How could she choose? How could she possibly choose? She did not tell Jin-woo, not that night when he called, not the next day when he texted asking if she was okay. She just shut down, went into survival mode. But Jin-woo was too perceptive. On the second night, he showed up at her flat. She opened the door, and he took one look at her face. What happened? Nothing. Do not lie to me. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. You have been pulling away for 2 days. Something happened. Nadine could not look at him. If she looked at him, she would break. Nadine. He turned her gently to face him. Or talk to me. They know, she whispered. The Navy knows about us. She watched his expression change. And they want me to end it, or face a review that could destroy my career. Jin-woo went very still. They are making you choose. Yes. Silence, heavy and suffocating. What are you going to do? He asked quietly. And that is when Nadine broke. I do not know. she cried. "The Navy is all I have. It is the only family I have ever had. But you and Minjun, I cannot imagine my life without you either." Jinwoo pulled her into his arms. She collapsed against him, finally letting out all the fear and pain. "I will fix this," he said firmly. "You cannot—" "I can, and I will." He pulled back, hands on her shoulders. "I have resources, lawyers, or influence. I will make this go away." "That will make it worse," Nadine said desperately. "If you interfere, it will just prove their point, that I am compromised, that I am using you." "So what then?" His voice rose. "I just let them bully you into leaving me?" "It is not bullying. It is regulations." "It is discrimination," Jinwoo shot back. "They would not do this if you were dating anyone else. It is because I am who I am." He was right, and that made it worse. "Maybe," Nadine said slowly, the words cutting her throat. "Maybe they are right. Maybe this was always going to be too complicated." Jinwoo stepped back like she had struck him. "You do not mean that. I barely know you." "That is a lie." His eyes flashed. "You know me, and you know me better than anyone has in years, and I know you. It has been 3 months. I do not care if it has been 3 days." Jinwoo said fiercely. "I love you. I am in love with you, and I know you feel the same. What I feel does not matter." "How can you say that?" "Because feelings do not pay bills. They do not give me purpose. They do not give me a place in the world." "I will give you a place." Jinwoo grabbed her hands. "With me, with Minjun. You have a place with us." Nadine pulled away. She had to. If she kept touching him, she would cave. "I cannot be someone's wife and mother as a career." "I am not asking you to give up your career. I am asking you to fight for us." "Against the entire British Navy? Against anyone who tries to keep us apart?" God, she wanted to believe him, wanted to believe love was enough, but she had learned the hard way that love was never enough. Love did not save her mother. Love did not make her father stay. Love just left you vulnerable and broken and alone. "I need you to leave," she whispered. "Nadine, please, I need time to think." Jinwoo stared at her for a long moment. She could see him warring with himself, wanting to push, wanting to fight. But finally, he nodded. "Okay," he said quietly. "But this is not over. We are not over. You hear me?" Nadine could not respond. He left, and she crumpled to the floor. She did not sleep that night, just stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. The ceremony, where Min Jun had found her. Every dinner. Every laugh. Every moment of feeling seen. Jinwoo's voice saying he loved her. Min Jun calling her Nadine Sem with such trust. The life she could have, if she was just brave enough to reach for it. But bravery in combat was different than bravery in love. In combat, you had training, protocol, a team. In love, you just had faith, and Nadine's faith had been broken a long time ago. At 400, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost did not answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Is this Officer Nadine Washington?" A woman's voice. Older, with a Korean accent. "Yes? Who is this?" "My name is Park Mi-sun. I am Jinwoo's mother." Nadine sat up straight. "Mrs. Park? I am calling because my son is in my London hotel room right now, heartbroken. And he will not tell me why, but I suspect it has something to do with you." "Oh, no. I did not mean—" "I am not calling to scold you," Mi-sun interrupted gently. "I am calling because I need you to understand something about my son." Nadine waited. When Jinwoo's wife died, he disappeared into himself. He functioned. He took care of Min-jun, but he was not alive. And then 3 months ago, he called me, and he sounded happy. Really happy, for the first time in years. Tears started rolling down Nadine's face. He told me about you, about how you met, about how you saw him. Not his money or his position, just him. Mrs. Park, I care about him. I care about both of them so much, but you are scared, Mi-sun said. I understand. My son is not an easy man to love. His life is complicated. There are expectations and pressures that you should not have to bear. It is not that, then what is it? Nadine found herself telling this woman everything, about the Navy's ultimatum, about her fear of losing her career, about not knowing if love was enough. Mi-sun listened quietly. When Nadine finished, there was a long pause. Can I tell you a story? Mi-sun finally asked. Of course. When I was 20, I fell in love with Jin-woo's father. But my family did not approve. He was not wealthy enough, not connected enough, and they gave me a choice, family or him. What did you do? I chose him, Mi-sun said simply, and my family disowned me. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was also the best thing. Because I built a life with the man I loved. We struggled, we fought, we built everything from nothing, and when he died, I had no regrets, because I had lived. Nadine was openly crying now. I am not telling you what to choose, Mi-sun continued, but I am telling you that careers end, positions change, but love, real love, that lasts forever, and regret will haunt you longer than any lost promotion. I am so scared, Nadine whispered. I know. But my son is scared too, and so is my grandson. Min-jun asks about you constantly. He drew you a picture yesterday, of the 3 of you together. That broke something in Nadine. I do not want to hurt them. Then do not, Mi-sun said firmly. Fight. Be brave. Not for the Navy, but for yourself. For the life you deserve. They talked for another hour. This woman she had never met, offering wisdom and kindness. When they finally hung up, Nadine sat in the gray pre-dawn light, and she made a decision. At 800, she walked into Commander Peters's office. I have made my decision, Nadine said. Peters looked up. And? I am not ending my relationship, Nadine said firmly. Park Jin-woo is a good man, and what we have is real, and if you want to review me, then do it. But I will not abandon people I love because it makes the Navy uncomfortable. Peters stared at her. You understand what you are risking? Yes, ma'am. I do, and I am willing to face the consequences, but I am also willing to fight, because what you are asking me to do is discriminatory and wrong. I will take it up the chain of command if I have to. For a long moment, Peters said nothing. Then she smiled, actually smiled. Good, she said. What? Officer Washington, that was a test. We have been watching you, your discipline, your leadership, and we needed to know if you could stand up under pressure, make hard choices, fight for what you believe in. Nadine felt dizzy. That was a test? There is no regulation against your relationship, Peters confirmed. In fact, several officers are in relationships with high-profile individuals. We needed to know you would not crumble, and you did not. You stood your ground. So, I am not in trouble? You are being promoted, Peters said. Lieutenant Washington, effective immediately. And you will be assigned to HMS Diamond as Junior Tactical Officer. Nadine could not breathe. This was everything she had worked for. Thank you, ma'am. Do not thank me, You earned it. Now get out of here. I suspect you have someone to call. Nadine practically ran from the office. Outside, she pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking. Jinwoo answered on the first ring. Nadine, I love you, she blurted out. I am in love with you, and I am sorry I got scared. And I am sorry I pushed you away. But I am done being afraid. Silence, then, say that again. I love you. Jinwoo, I love you, and Minjun, and where are you? At the base? Stay there. I am coming. He hung up. 15 minutes later. A black Mercedes screeched into the parking lot. Jinwoo got out, still in the same clothes from last night. He looked like he had not slept. He probably had not. He crossed the distance between them in long strides, and then he was lifting her, spinning her, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. Say it again, he demanded. I love you. Again. I love you. He set her down, hands cupping her face. I love you too. So much. I was going crazy. I know, I am sorry. Do not apologize. Just do not leave me again. Do not shut me out. I will not. I promise. I am all in. Completely terrified, but all in. Jinwoo's smile was devastating. Where is Minjun? Nadine asked. With my mother at the hotel. No, why? Because I need to do this without an audience. And then she pulled him down, and finally, they were together again. This time with no fear, no hesitation, just love, pure and terrifying and absolutely real. When they broke apart, Jinwoo pressed his forehead to hers. Move in with us, he whispered. Jinwoo, that is fast. I do not care. I want you in my home, in my life, in every moment. Move in with us. Nadine should have said no, should have said they needed more time, but she was done being careful, done being afraid. Okay, she whispered. Yes. 3 months later, Nadine stood in Jinwoo's penthouse number their penthouse, wearing her dress uniform. Minjun was spinning in circles, wearing a tiny suit, beyond excited. Is it time yet, Appa? Almost, Jinwoo said, adjusting his son's tie for the 10th time. Today was Nadine's official promotion ceremony, and Jinwoo had insisted on throwing her a celebration after. Their home was filled with people. Her Navy colleagues, Jinwoo's business associates, and his family, his mother, Mi's son, who had flown in from Korea and immediately pulled Nadine into a fierce hug. His sister and her family, all of them accepting her, welcoming her, making her feel like she belonged. Jinwoo appeared beside her, looking unfairly handsome in a dark suit. You look nervous, he observed. I am, Nadine admitted. This is a lot of people. We can send them away? She laughed. Your mother would kill you? True. He pulled her close, his hand settling at her waist, but it would be worth it. Jinwoo, she warned, but she was smiling. Minjun crashed into both of them, wrapping his arms around their legs. Group hug, they both laughed, and Jinwoo lifted his son, creating space for Nadine to step into their embrace. This was her family, this impossible, beautiful, chaotic family that she had found by accident. Or maybe not accident. Maybe fate, maybe grace, maybe a 5-year-old boy who believed that when someone looked sad, you gave them a hug. I love you both, Nadine whispered. So much. We love you too. Nadine Sam, Minjun said seriously. Jinwoo's eyes met hers over their son's head. Yes, their son. Because Minjun had asked her 2 weeks ago if she was going to be his new mom. And Nadine had cried and said, if he wanted her to be. And he had said, in that serious way of his, I have wanted that since the day I met you. What are you thinking about? Jinwoo asked softly. How lucky I am, Nadine said. How a few months ago, I stood alone in a ceremony hall, thinking I had no one, and now you have us, Jinwoo finished. Forever. You have us. Forever. Forever, she agreed, because she finally understood love was enough. Not because it made everything easy, but because it made the hard things worth fighting for. And Nadine Washington, formidable Navy officer, survivor, warrior, had finally found something worth fighting for. A Korean billionaire with sad eyes and a gentle heart. A 5-year-old boy who saw people's pain and offered kindness. A family she had built from loneliness and grace. Standing in that penthouse, surrounded by love. Nadine smiled. She had spent so long being tapped out, being alone, being strong because she had no choice. But now she had people who would stand with her, who would catch her when she fell, who would see her, really see her, and love her anyway. Minjun wiggled down and ran off to show his grandmother something. Jinwoo pulled Nadine closer, his hand coming up to touch her face. "Happy?" he asked. Such a simple question, but the answer was everything. "Yes," Nadine whispered, "I am happy." And for the first time in her life, she truly was. Hush and Later that night, after all the guests had left, after Minjun had fallen asleep in his bed, Nadine and Jinwoo stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at London spread below them. His arms were around her, her back pressed to his chest. "I have something for you," he said quietly. "Jinwoo, you already threw me this entire party." "Not that." He pulled back, and she turned. He was holding a small box. Nadine's heart stopped. "It is not what you think," he said quickly, seeing her expression. "I mean, not yet. Not until you are ready. But I needed you to have this." He opened the box. Inside was a delicate necklace, a simple pendant in the shape of an anchor. In Korean culture, we have a saying, "An anchor holds you steady in the storm," and that is what you are for me, for us. Anat, you are our anchor. Nadine felt tears spill over. "Jinwoo, I know we are doing this all backwards," he continued. "You moved in before we even said I love you. You became Minjun's mother before we talked about marriage. But I do not care about the order. I just care about this. About us." He took the necklace from the box, and she turned, letting him fasten it around her neck. His fingers lingered on her skin. "One day," he whispered against her ear, "when you are ready, I am going to ask you properly, with a ring and a plan. But for now, I just need you to know that you are mine, and I am yours, completely." Nadine turned in his arms. "I am already yours," she said. "I have been since the moment your son took my hand. And I have been yours since I saw you standing alone, trying so hard to be strong." They stood there, holding each other, the London lights twinkling below. Two people who had been broken by loss, who had learned to survive alone, finding each other across a crowded ceremony hall, building something beautiful from loneliness and pain. "Thank you," Nadine whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. For not giving up. For teaching me that I am allowed to need someone." "Thank you for letting me in," Jinwoo replied. "For trusting me with your heart. For loving my son." "Our son," Nadine corrected. Jinwoo's smile was soft and full of love. "Our son," he agreed. And in that moment, Nadine knew. This was her forever. This man, this child, this family. She had been tapped out that day, tapped out of loneliness, tapped out of isolation, tapped out of believing she had to carry everything alone by a 5-year-old boy who believed in kindness. and a man who believed in second chances. So, there, you have it. A story about a woman who stood alone until she did not. A story about a little boy who saw sadness and chose compassion. A story about a man learning to love again after loss. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it is okay to need people, that being strong does not mean being alone, that sometimes the family you build is even more powerful than the family you are born into. Subscribe for more stories about love and hope and finding light in dark places.